Sahana vavatu, sahano punaktu, sahaviryam karavavahe, tejasvinavadidamastu, ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om. Have you ever thought much about the role jewelry, crystals, sacred objects, or adornment play in your life, in your energy field, even in conscious creation? For thousands of years, women have adorned themselves with stones, metals, symbols, malas, bindis, sacred jewelry, and ritual objects. And I don't believe this was ever only about beauty or decoration. I think ancient cultures understood something that we may have forgotten, and that is that objects carry energy, and adornment affects consciousness. So the things we place on our bodies influence us far more than most of us may realize. Namaste and welcome to the Spiritual Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Alexandra Savithri Amba, Reiki Master, Vedic Healing Master and Priestess, Spiritual Guide and Director of the American Reiki Academy and the Vedic Healing Center. In this podcast, we explore Reiki, Vedic healing, manifestation, sacred space, feminine energy, spiritual awakening, and the deeper energetic dimensions of life. And in today's episode, I want to speak about the hidden energetic power of jewelry, crystals, sacred adornment, and the ways ancient traditions understood this, that what we place on the body is affecting us far more than simply our appearance. I also want to share a couple of ways to begin working more consciously with sacred adornment in your own life and energetic objects. So I've been wanting to do this episode for a while. It's been running around in my head. And yesterday I walked into an Indian jewelry store after not being in one for quite a while. I needed something repaired that I had bought in India. And of course, there was gold everywhere. Everything sparkling, and women trying things on, bangles, necklaces, sacred pendants. So I stood there looking into the glass cases, and I really started reflecting on this topic, women and adornment throughout history, and why it's so important, why women have adorned themselves and why we continue to do so, and why even we offer jewelry as gifts to people. There was a woman next to me who was purchasing something for her daughter. So why do sacred traditions place such emphasis on gold, gemstones, malas, bindis, flowers, silks, ritual jewelry, and other sacred objects? So this is not merely vanity. Instead, what I really realize, and especially from my travels to India, where there's such a beauty in adornments, what I really understand is that women are expressions of Shakti, feminine life force energy. So adornment is really not merely fashion. In fact, it's kind of a given that the male force, the husband, the man, the boyfriend, is to honor the feminine by adorning her. And so it's really an acknowledgement of the feminine energy, helping her embellish her natural beauty. So adornment was never merely fashion, never. It was energy. It was ritual. It was beauty. It was sacred expression. I remember once I was hosting a visiting monk from the Himalayas here in America, and he was going to conduct some seminars. And one of the first things he said after arriving was that when he landed in the airport and got out of the airplane, he felt sad because he saw so many women dressed in black. And I remember being really kind of struck by that, because in India, when you land, you see color. Color carries energy. So traditionally in India, white and black are not so much favored. Different. It depends on the religious background too, but mostly color is what you see everywhere. And I think the adornment carries great meaning. Beauty is often understood as sacred rather than superficial. And maybe if you were to interview someone in India and to ask about this, they may not say this, but this is actually where that tradition comes from. Women are acknowledged as feminine forces. So traditionally, they, and in the West too, although sometimes we've forgotten this, we are in charge of decorating. We decorate altars, we decorate our homes. Now we also decorate the body. And again, I think modern culture has become disconnected from this really sacred and beautiful dimension of beauty. Now, personally, I became interested in crystals and energetic objects many years ago. One of the ways was through my Reiki master. She was not only a healer and a Reiki master, but she was a crystal healer, a very adept crystal healer. And she was also an artist and jewelry maker. So she taught me that objects absorb energy, and crystals could be consciously used. We used them in healings. And I remember one healing I had where so many crystals were used we can use them on the body, under the massage table. There are many ways to use them in a healing session. And at first I remember one time she said to me, she picked up a stone and she said, "Oh, this crystal is very potent for opening the third eye. See what you feel." And I held it and I thought, it just feels like a stone in my hand. And I told her that, and she said, "Well, put it against your heart, see what you feel." And I said, "It still feels like a stone in my hand, now against my heart." And she said, "Put it against your third eye, see what you feel." So it was a process of me learning how to tune in at first, because you always have your intellectual mind, and then you also have what's beyond that, which is your intuitive sense. And over time, I began to really feel and sense crystals. So malas also are part of sacred jewelry. Often we see people wearing malas, and maybe that's not done always intentionally. Maybe sometimes I think people buy a mala online and then wrap it around their arm as a point of fashion and expect it to do something. But actually, the mala, okay, it's going to do something by virtue of being whatever beads it is. It is going to carry some energy, but the mala is activated and intensified and energized through your prayers. So as you chant, the energy builds up in the mala. And therefore, when you wear it, it's no longer just rose quartz or rudraksha or amethyst or whatever substance you're using. It is that substance and the energy of that substance plus the energy of the mantras you have done or the prayers. It's just like a rosary. A rosary is the exact same kind of philosophy. The prayers that you do on the rosary build up energy on that rosary, and so it carries power. Now, when you really work with energy deeply enough, you start realizing how everything carries some energy. Now, and we realize this in feng shui practices too. So all the objects in your home are carrying energy. A mala you have chanted on for years feels very different from a brand new mala. A sacred object placed on an altar and activated through your prayer work begins to carry energy. A crystal, energized, cleared, gifted with love, feels different from something just purchased. When it's purchased, it's I won't say it's devoid of energy. It's emptier. So it's never empty, but it's emptier than it is going to evolve into when you work with it. So even my grandmother understood this. I think, it's something that's innate to women. My grandmother loved gold jewelry, and she would often remove a favorite piece and place it into my hands. And although I didn't fully understand it at the time, what was happening was she was energetically, she was conveying love to me, but something energetic was being transmitted through that jewelry, and it was the energy of her, this is why I'm just thinking of the term psychometry. So psychometry is a process by which you can derive messages through an object. So it extends to what I'm speaking about. So everything holds energy. A piece of jewelry that has been worn a lot holds energy, and psychometry is the ability to read that energy and derive messages. We work with this actually in level 2 Reiki when I teach level 2. And this is why also when you put on, think about a piece of clothing that you put on, an old familiar sweater feels different from a brand new sweater. So your old sweater may have holes in it and it may not look so nice, but it carries an energy to it. And the energy is comfort and caring and love. So there's a reason you don't discard that old sweater. And today I wanted to share 3 simple ways you can begin working more consciously with sacred adornment. And objects, energetic objects in your own life. And before I get into that, I want to mention something about bindis. So traditionally, when women in India get dressed, they adorn themselves with gold and jewelry, as we do here in the West. Of course, we decorate our bodies to bring out our beauty. But you're decorating yourself to honor yourself as a feminine expression of the divine. So when women get dressed in India, the last thing they do is, not all of them, again, depends on the religious traditions, but they will put a bindi on the third eye. And a bindi now is usually it's a sticker that has some kind of little gemstone on it. Not real. It's, just decoration. So they're sparkly and they're pretty. And we're putting it right at the third eye. Why is that? We're putting it on the third eye to remember our essence and to call attention to the intuitive sense that is where your divine feminine energy comes from. You acknowledging your intuition, the quiet sense that you get, this yin energy that cannot be explained, but is extremely innate and is extremely natural and is sadly put down by society sometimes. So I've heard so many times, I've heard women say, oh, I don't know why I'm saying this, but, and I often will say to women, how would your life be if you stop saying that? If you just say, I received this message, or I heard this in meditation, or I received a download in the shower. Yes, in the shower, because in the shower you are relaxed and the warm water coming on your head is an extremely healing experience. I get lots of messages in the shower. I come out of the shower and I have clear messages. I go into the shower not with any agenda that I'm listening for messages, but I allow the water to calm the crown chakra and the whole body, of course, but to soothe the mental body and just be in the experience of the warm water falling on me, and the messages come very readily. I'm going to segue a little, because when I teach level 2 Reiki and I teach people how to channel, what happens is you go into a deep space, and in that deep space, the information, the messages are readily available. At first, you are in your intellect, like me holding the stone and saying to Roxanne, just feels like a cold stone. And she would say, go deeper into it, go beyond that feeling. So a little segue about bindis. And one thing I want to say, traditionally when a warrior a long time ago would go off to war in India, the wife would anoint his forehead as a blessing. Anointing this spot was to call his instincts inward. And it was as if she was giving him her power. She was conveying to him Shakti. And also, this was a blessing for his safety. So it's there's a lot about this, the significance of this space between the eyebrows and and the power that it holds. So when you see a bindi, or when you meditate and you place you can take the third finger on your right hand and touch that third eye, and you are, even if you're not putting a bindi there, just touching it in meditation, you are calling your attention inward to your immense Shakti, your immense divine power. I could do a whole episode on this, and maybe I will. But for now, I just want to call your attention there and have you understand how the jewelry that you place on your body and where you place it holds significance. And there's also a tradition where through Vedic astrology, where certain gemstones are worn on certain fingers to call forth energy from the planet and from the planets that you might need in your life at this time. So wearing this jewelry is so much more than adornment, and it's all so very fascinating. Now back to my topic, and I always segue a little bit. So I wanted to share 3 simple ways you can begin working more consciously with sacred adornment and energetic objects in your life. And okay, before I tell you these 3 very simple techniques, I want to say that when you get dressed in the morning, if you can spend time in getting dressed, I don't mean picking out your clothing, and I want you to really think about being centered with your being and slowing everything down, whether this means when you put on, let's say, body lotion, spending time with your body, tuning in and applying this lotion. This is a ritual also. It's also about calling attention to this divine energy within you, this feminine energy. As you honor your body, you call forth this energy and you become so much more in tune with your own life force, your own creative abilities, your own Shakti. Okay, so 3 simple ways. The first is choose objects in your life intuitively. Not every crystal, symbol, or piece of jewelry is meant for everyone. So yesterday when I was in the jewelry store, it was interesting because I was just looking at everything, and you can, of course, you can just admire things but not own them. And this is how we select crystals also. We select them through feeling. Sometimes I tell people when they're purchasing a crystal, you don't necessarily need the biggest crystal. You need the one that resonates with you. And an object will speak to you. You'll feel calmer near it. You'll feel drawn to it. Basically, it becomes a vibrational match. So you're trusting that feeling. You're tuning into that feeling, whether it's a crystal you're selecting for your home, or maybe for jewelry that you're going to wear. But just really understanding that your intuition is your guide. So you're not looking for the biggest piece of jewelry or even the most bling. You're looking for what resonates with you. And the second tip is to charge your objects consciously. So normally we would cleanse a piece of jewelry or a mala or a crystal on our altar, and there are processes you can do to cleanse them, but simply placing them on the altar is a certain kind of cleansing. Crystals often we will rinse in salty water, sea salt water. You're going to meditate with them. That will also charge them. Hold them in your hands, pray with them, chant with them. Over time, they begin carrying the vibration of your own practice and intention. And we always treat our objects with care, this jewelry, the malas, the crystals. So make sure you keep them clean, keep them in a sacred place. I've said before that sometimes people will keep a mala in a small bag, a bead bag. So, or sometimes they will wear it, but you're not going to toss it down on the coffee table when you come in. You're not going to really toss anything. You're going to hold it and handle it with care. And third, adorn yourself consciously. So when you start to select pieces that you're going to wear for the day, you're calling forth the energy of that piece. And again, it's not merely for appearance, it's for the energy that you need that day. It's an honoring of the sacred feminine within you, whether it's a mala you're placing on your body, a bindi. The other thing I want to say is, segueing again, but we don't usually like other people to touch these objects because that object, unless it's maybe a loved one, a husband or a wife, but you're not going to share the mala with someone else. This object is to activate and energize you and to give back to you. It's a relationship, just like your altar is a relationship. So all of these objects are having a relationship with you. That's why, like in psychometry, when you could pick up a piece of jewelry that was worn from someone else and receive information about that person, and that person has been in relationship with that object, and it's now carrying energy, and sometimes that energy is not something you would want to carry, or sometimes it is, like your grandmother giving you jewelry. So whether it's a mala, a bindi, a sacred pendant, beautiful earrings, flowers in the hair, so you're adorning yourself as you're doing this. You're not just saying, I'm making myself pretty. What you're doing is you're really honoring the sacred feminine within yourself. And women also tend to look in the mirror and be very critical. So if you can, please stop doing that. Put your attention on the beauty that you see rather than anything that you don't like about your body. As you honor the feminine within you, it gives back to you. So these things all become reminders of beauty, of devotion, of creativity too. Women are known for creativity. And so how you adorn yourself is so interesting, and it brings light to the world, and of course of Shakti. So adornment in its really highest form is not vanity. It is a remembrance. It's a remembrance that the body itself is sacred, and that your energy, your divine feminine energy, from where all of creation springs, is living in your system, in your being, in your body. So the next time you meditate, you can take your third finger of your right hand and just place it on your third eye and allow yourself to remember. We also use sacred ash. Sometimes a bindi is not a sticker. It is it is, well, traditionally, actually, bindis were gemstones, were real gemstones that women wore there. I had somebody come up to me once and ask me if I had a piercing there. So I thought that was amusing. But anyway, now you can buy little stickers. But the stickers, it's always about remembrance. And what are we remembering? We're remembering this Shakti, this feminine energy. And even just you don't have to wear a bindi. You can just touch the third eye. Touch it with the right finger of your, the ring finger of your right hand, and call your energy inwards and call your energy back. See, somewhere along the way, you, I, all of us have lost connection. And it is up to us to reconnect. Reconnect. We do that through our spiritual practice, through every aspect of our practice. But this small act of just touching your third eye every day is going to help you call that back. Sometimes in meditation, we put attention. The teacher will say, put attention on your third eye. So you can visualize that spot. But if it's hard to visualize or you need something more immediate, just touch that spot every day. And you're calling yourself back into the divine, the remembrance of the divine feminine. There's a reason, I want to say, there's a reason you were born and are living in a female body this lifetime. It's not by accident. So now it's up to you to remember that Shakti, that presence, that beautiful and multi-dimensional energy. The goddesses in India are depicted with so many powers. So the divine feminine energy is not simply about beauty. It's about the feminine spirit in all of her ramifications and all of her amazing complexity. And as we remember and honor that energy, we call forth our power. So this is a reminder, let's say, a reminder to call back your power. And you can do that just by touching that area. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Om Sai Ram. Jai Guruji. Om Amriteshwari Namaha. Hare Krishna. Om Namah Shivaya.